Right, Mr. Secretary, let's turn to China and the president's trade war. President Trump said he has spoken directly with President Xi Jinping. Chinese officials, though, say that no talks have taken place about a trade war. Can you help us to understand where this stands? Has President Trump spoken to President Xi after imposing those 145% tariffs?
Well, I mean, just like the previous answer, I think I'm not going to be commenting on who talked to who and what they talked about, because obviously this is also a high-stakes negotiation. The fundamental fact is this. For 30-something years, the Chinese have gotten away with unfair trade practices. Not just unfair, outrageously unfair trade practices. Yeah. Just very simple. Chinese companies can do whatever they want in America. American companies can only do what the Chinese allow them to do in China, and it's very limited, and every year it gets more and more limited. They flood, not just us, but they flood the world with exports, but they push back against any imports. They are 100% favorable to unfairly favorable to their companies and unfair to ours. They steal our intellectual property. Yeah. They reverse engineer things they get a hold of. I mean, it's on and on and on, unfair, and they've been allowed to get away with it. And finally, almost too late, really, but finally we have a president that stood up to it. And it's not just us that needs to be standing up to it, by the way. Europe is concerned about the number of electric cars that China tried to dump on them. China's had trade problems with Canada and with others. This needs to stop. And so the bottom line is that the president is dealing with something that should have been dealt with a very long time ago, and it was almost too late.
So, Mr. Secretary, just to be clear, you can't confirm that a phone call has taken place between President Trump and President Xi of China post?
Well, I don't comment on the phone calls the president makes with foreign leaders.
Right.
Yeah, I think I've directed you to the White House. It's for the president to tell you who he's talked to. I'm not going to get in the way of those negotiations.
Okay, let's talk now about some new reporting that came in overnight. I want to just go through it for you and for our audience. 3 U.S. citizen children have been deported with their mothers. Now, this is according to the Washington Post. The family's lawyer says one of them is a 4-year-old with stage 4 cancer, deported without medication or ability to contact doctors. The family's lawyers are also saying their clients were denied communication with family and legal representatives before being deported, and it's raising concerns about the issue of due process, that it's being violated. So let me ask you, is everyone on U.S. soil, citizens and non-citizens, entitled to due process?
Yes, of course. But let me tell you, it looks in immigration standing, the laws are very specific. If you're in this country unlawfully, you have no right to be here and you must be removed. That's what the law says. Somehow over the last 20 years, we've completely lost this notion that somehow or completely adopted this idea that, yes, we have immigration laws, but once you come into our country illegally, it triggers all kinds of rights that can keep you here indefinitely. That's why we were being flooded at the border. And we've ended that, and that's why you see a historically low number of people not just trying to cross our border, trying to cross the border into Panama, all the way down in the Darien Gap. I mean, it's been a huge help for those countries as well. On the headline, that's a misleading headline. Okay, 3 U.S. citizens, ages 4, 7, and 2, were not deported. Their mothers, who are legally in this country, were deported. The children went with their mothers. If those children are U.S. citizens, they can come back into the United States if there's their father or someone here who wants to assume them. But ultimately, who was deported was their mothers who were here illegally. The children just went with their mothers. But it wasn't like, you guys make it sound like ICE agents kicked down the door and grabbed the 2-year-old and threw him on an airplane. That's misleading. Yeah. That's just not true.
Just to be clear, because I do want to get to the overhaul at the State Department, is it the U.S. policy to deport children, even U.S. citizens, with their families, and I hear what you're saying, without due process, just to be very clear there?
Well, no. Again, if someone's in this country unlawfully, illegally, that person gets deported. If that person is with a 2-year-old child or has a 2-year-old child and says, I want to take my child with me, well, then you have 2 choices. You can say, yes, of course you can take your child, whether they're a citizen or not, because it's your child. Or you can say, yes, you can go, but your child must stay behind. And then your headlines would read, U.S. holding hostage 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 7-year-old while mother deported. So the parents make that choice. I imagine those 3 U.S. citizen children have fathers here in the United States. Yeah. They can stay with their father. That's up to their family to decide where the children go. Children go with their parents. Parents decide where their children go. Right. The U.S. deported their mothers who were illegally in America.
Mr. Secretary, I want to talk to you about this overhaul of the State Department. You slashed U.S.-based employees by 15%, actually less than what the White House was recommending, which was about 50%. It's my understanding. Are you finished with the cuts, or are more coming?
We haven't slashed anything yet. What we did is reorganize the agencies because we have the world, the globe, the planet is the exact same size that it was 20 years ago. But the State Department is somehow almost, double the size. So the world hasn't gotten any bigger, but somehow the State Department continues to grow. But this is not just about saving money. It's primarily about making sure that every bureau and every office in the State Department is a purpose and it's fulfilling them and they work together. What this really is about is empowering what's called the regional bureaus and our embassies. We want to return more power and more influence and more responsibility to our embassies and to the regional bureaus that oversee those embassies. That's what this reorganization is about. The 15% you're referring to is after we've reorganized, we're going to ask the bureau heads and the assistant secretaries, many of whom are career Foreign Service officers, to look at their bureaus and their operations and suggest to us 15% reductions. Suggest to us 15% reductions. Then we'll look at that. That's not an unreasonable number. But this is a reorganization that should have been done 10, 15 years ago. Multiple secretaries of state from both appointed by presidents, both Democrat and Republican, would have loved to have done it. I just happen to be fortunate to work for a president that allowed us to do it, that actually asked us to do it, and I'm excited about it. I think it's going to make the State Department more nimble, more effective, and it's going to empower our very talented diplomats to finally be able to do their jobs in ways they've been held back from doing in the past because of bureaucracy and redundancy within the State Department.
Mr. Secretary, very quickly, because we're out of time already, but Canadians, as you know, head to the polls tomorrow for their parliamentary elections. Have you taken any steps to carry out President Trump's plans? He says he wants to annex Canada.
Any what? I'm sorry?
Any plans to carry out
I missed the last part of your question.
Absolutely. I'll repeat it. Have you taken any steps to carry out President Trump's plans, as he has said he would like to annex Canada? Have you taken any steps in that direction?
No, I think what the president has said, and he has said this repeatedly, is he was told by the previous prime minister that Canada could not survive without unfair trade with the United States. At which point he asked, well, if you can't survive as a nation without treating us unfairly in trade, then you should become a state. That's what he said. They'll have their elections this week. They're going to have a new leader, and we'll deal with a new leadership of Canada. There are many things we work with cooperatively on Canada on, but we actually don't like the way they've treated us when it comes to trade. And the president has made that point when he responded to the previous prime minister in regards to this.
So does the U.S. still want to make Canada the 51st state?
I think the president has stated repeatedly he thinks Canada would be better off as a state. And he has said that based on what he was told by the previous prime minister, who said Canada can't survive unless it treats the U.S. unfairly in trade.
All right. Okay. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, thank you so much. We covered a lot of ground today. Really appreciate your joining us.
Thank you.
And when we come back,